Everybody, clap your hands. Everybody, clap your hands. I'm tired of people questioning, is the cellular degradation a continuation from Crisis Core over into Final Fantasy VII? And no, this is not the original game. In today's video, I want to take a look at something very specific, and that is cellular degradation. Because I feel oftentimes people keep saying, this is the original game, this is the original game, when there's been so many differences that clearly indicate to us that this is not the original game. I went over some of those in one of my previous videos, that the truthers, the Clariths, the Cloud Tifas can never really explain. And in today's video, I'm going to get really specific as to how the cellular degradation is a continuation from Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, and exactly how Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion is a prequel leading into the Final Fantasy VII R series. And for those, I know, you're thinking, the developer said it's not canon. The developer said it's not part of our series. Well, the thing about the developers is that if you put all three of them in separate rooms, they would all have three separate answers. There's a general foundation that the developers have of a vision that they have for the end of the Final Fantasy VII R series, and I'm here to put it all together for you, because what I'll quote right next is the developers saying that Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion is canon and a prequel to the story of Final Fantasy VII R series. So hopefully we could put at least that to rest. Spoiler warning. This is a spoiler warning. This is a spoiler warning. Hello there. This is a spoiler warning. Turn off now or forever hold your peace. So the question then becomes, why is Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion a sequel, and why is Final Fantasy VII OG not just a remaster in Final Fantasy VII R series? And the simple reason is because the Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion story and lore is way more clear than the Final Fantasy VII original. Damn! Which is why they chose to remake the game millions of dollars to release it in between Remake and Rebirth. Because the developers told us you should play Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Remastered Reunion so that you could understand properly what's going on in the story. And that's something that I've argued through my entire playlist called Merge the Timelines, where I take the time to look at some of the older games and how they've merged those ideas into the newer games. So let's take a look at it narratively. In Final Fantasy VII Original, we're mostly chasing around Sephiroth in a bunch of different towns and across the world. We want to destroy Shinra because they're sucking the planet from the Mako, and we're only told really in the third act that the main climax of the story is Cloud's disillusion with himself. We don't really have a backstory as to why it's happening. We don't really have an understanding of, oh, well, is this affecting other people as well? And I think that's really what the devs tried to do with Crisis Core Reunion, and what they tried to do with Crisis Core after OG to help us better understand, okay, what exactly is going on with this degradation? And one of the key things that a lot of people ignore in the Final Fantasy VII community is that in the original game, the term cellular degradation does not appear even one time. The term Mako poisoning only appears 3 times. So for these people to think that cellular degradation is not a part of the entire underpinning storyline ignores everything that we've seen in Remake, Rebirth, in Crisis Core Reunion, and what we're seeing now through Ever Crisis First Soldier, Chapter 1 and 2. And the criticism of Final Fantasy VII OG is not to hate on the game, but it is to say that the game clearly had some transliteration issues from Japanese to English. It had some scenes that they weren't as smooth as they tried to deliver them in Japanese. Some of the ideas weren't fully developed. Some of the scenes aren't really depicting what they tried to depict, like for example, the live stream scene with Tifa, and she's like, who, me? but then they have to further develop that in Rebirth, in the Gagaga scene with Cloud, and Cloud says, what did those boys tell you? And then we have to get further into TOTP to really understand what's going on with Tifa actually having a memory loss when she fell unconscious for that week. They're really clarifying the ideas in our series, and you have to truly understand what's going on to understand the sequence of events, to understand where the final event is going to go, with Genova being the big bad. That's what they're developing. We also have to look in the OG how people were narratively writing bad guys. If you look at back in the early 90s or late 90s, people like Mojo Jojo just wanted to take over the world. Or if you look at Pinky and the Brain, the plan is to take over the world. There's never really a detailed feeling of buy-in from the bad guy narratively. It's always just he's bad because he's bad. And what we've seen over the last couple of years, if you want to look at TV series like Game of Thrones, if you want to look at animes like Attack on Titan, or if you want to look at a very popular movie from the Marvel series, Infinity War and Endgame, we have a character in that movie called Thanos. And yes, I know, Thanos is different in the comics than he is in the movies. But if we take the narrative construction of somebody like Thanos, who is a brilliant genius, who on his home planet, he warned the upper class, he warned the bourgeoisie, he warned the elites, the politicians to say, hey, I've done the math, we're not going to be able to be sustainable if we keep using up the natural resources, the Mako energy. And he brought it to them and said, look, I have a plan. If we kill 50% of the population, the remainder of the population can thrive and will have enough resources for them to live forever. Huh? But if you're in power and you're a politician and you're living a rich, cozy life in your Bugatti and you're chilling, limousines in the clubs and the penthouses with all the exposure to everything you want in your personal life, why would you agree to have the chance of randomly being snapped away in a lottery that doesn't discriminate over rich and for poor? You wouldn't go for that. You'd say, get rid of all the poor people. And this discussion, just to be clear, is more of a philosophical discussion, because what ended up happening on Thanos' planet, spoiler warning, is that the entire population died. So instead of the 50%, 100% of the people died, which left Thanos thinking, I have to prevent this from happening to every single other planet so that they can thrive and not be destroyed like how my home planet was. That's why he goes out to get the Infinity Stones. That's why he goes out individually at first, conquering planet by planet, getting rid of 50% of the population to eventually enact his overall plan, because he sees resources as finite, and he's trying to find a way to make sure that the longevity of the human species, or the species in general, can continue into infinity. And the thing about Thanos is that he's actually willing to sacrifice himself and all of his generals. The 50-50 snap includes himself. It's not just, I'm gonna snap and you guys are the victims and I'm not at risk of possibly disappearing. It's 50% of everything. So I know that he's seen oftentimes as a villain, but the complexities of why he's doing what he's doing is at the essence of a character like Thanos. And how that translates into Final Fantasy VII is because they want to further develop narratively the bad guy, the evil person. What's the reason why everything's happening? And with the evolution of antagonist kind of arcs, there has been a deep, deep progression how we develop their stories. And in Final Fantasy VII, our series, and in Crisis Core, they're clearly developing that for us so that we better understand, oh man, so that we're morally convicted. A good villain makes you feel morally convicted of, is that right? Is that wrong? I wouldn't do that, but I understand what he's doing. People like Zahir from Final Fantasy, or from Legend of Korra. Zahir, great antagonist. Solomon Lane from the Mission Impossible, great antagonist. It's people like that that's morally conflicted. Anime, Light Yagami from Death Note. It's things like that that's like, oh man, he's doing this to get rid of the bad people, but because he's not democratically elected, he's not allowed to do this or do that. These are the characters like Sephiroth that make it worthwhile to be like, damn, is he really gonna destroy the planet and be a god? Does he really not see what he's doing is kind of manipulative? Is he really under control? Who's controlling him? That's why they went with the Crisis Core story, because the Crisis Core story was very popular. The Crisis Core game on PSP sold 3.1 million copies and made a lot of money for Square Enix. It was the eighth top most sold game on PSP. So it clearly shows that now that we've developed from OG, this weird guy named Zack that we see get shot down, and now we go to Crisis Core PSP, and we're like, oh, who's this Angel-Genesis Sephiroth friendship? Weird cellular degradation from Hollander and Genova, and this is kind of confusing. What's really going on? That was the institution of the narrative building of these characters. The essence of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core is the cellular degradation, is something that I talk about a lot on my channel, how soldiers equals monsters. This is a theme repeated multiple times in the Crisis Core reunion that a lot of creators, a lot of people on Twitter, they never talk about it. They're stuck in the relationship stuff. They're stuck in Shinra's so evil, Sephiroth was psychopath. They don't actually take the time to be like, okay, well, this kind of is with this, and this is kind of here, and this is kind of over here, making sense of all of it. So that's why I take the time out of my days to share this kind of information with you, to help you understand narratively what makes the most sense in the game, and to help you kind of better understand what exactly is going on. So clearly after Crisis Core's success on the PSP, you have to also take in the money talks kind of mentality. Square Enix is making games for us to enjoy, yes, of course, but they're also making games to make a lot of money. So when they're able to remaster a game that they know has a lot of success because of the new characters and the new lore that they've created, they're seeing dollar bills flash up in the air. And you have to also think, that's why they'll never give us a clear answer about the relationship stuff. Because there are people on Twitter, on the internet, on YouTube, content creators who make non-stop videos talking about, oh, well, this scene, he looked at her like this, and the last scene, he looked at her like this, and they try to pick and peel, and that grows a fanatical fan base that you can't risk upsetting either side. The most recent drama about upsetting one side for the Trust the Devs people is in Ever Crisis. They released the scene where in OG, Aerith dies. And they called it Water Burial. And what did the people who love Aerith do? They didn't trust the devs. They'll tell you to trust the devs, but they'll never trust the devs. They whined and cried and said all this stuff until Square Enix came out with an apology saying, we'll change the name of the chapter. How silly is that? How silly is it that they'll say trust the devs, and hypocritical that they want you to trust the devs, but anytime they do something they don't like, they'll say, can you change it? You asshole. Can you change it? Why would you do that? These people are completely unreasonable. Don't waste your time chatting with them, because the Clarith people are truthers. The Cloud Tifa people are even worse than they're the exact same. They don't even realize it. The Clarists hold on to the OG and they think Cloud and Aerith are together. The Cloud Tifa people hate on the Aerith people and say that the Aerith people never want to have a discussion with us. But the Cloud and Tifa people do the exact same thing, except for the problem they make is they think that the game is still the original. So the Cloud Tifa people think it's the original. The Cloud Aerith people think it's the box art and the ridiculousness about Cloud and Aerith are together forever, eternally in the live stream, and none of them will talk to each other. Which is why you'll never see a Cloud Tifa try to engage with me, because they'll be like, this guy's so extreme, when realizing they're just as extreme as the people they're claiming are extreme. So it makes this infinity loop, infinity gauntlet, Thanos snap, just come here for the top news. So as I was saying before that rant, Square Enix is going to go where the money leads, and because there was a huge fan base created from Crisis Core PSP, they realized that, oh man, these guys actually love Zack. Zack Fair, great guy. So they started extending that building around him narratively. And speaking of Zack Fair, I know the ending of Remake was hugely confusing for you. It was confusing for me. A little bit, because I had the belief there's no way a million Shinra troops could ever kill Zack Fair. He has summoning magic, he has materia, he has the Buster Sword. We see in Last Order he can dodge bullets. Nothing is touching him. He's not running out of energy. Pop a Phoenix down, pop a potion, pop a ether, pop a freaking haste. Pop a Molly, I'm sweating. Woo! Pop a Molly, I'm sweating. Woo! I should probably edit that out. But the ending of Remake, showing Zack is alive, and the opening of Rebirth, with them inputting Final Fantasy Crisis Core Reunion in the middle, it's clearly showing us there's something there that's all connected that you would benefit from learning and getting a better understanding about. And I know, some people think Zack's dead, some people think Zack's alive. Some people think that Zack is a summon, some people think that he's a Force ghost like Yoda in Star Wars. Or some people think Zack is a dead mentor like Avatar Roku, trying to help Cloud find himself. For me, obviously I'm of the view that Zack is alive and his hero journey is not done.
Someone who isn't with us anymore. But he doesn't feel gone. It's like I wouldn't be surprised if I woke up one day and saw him outside our gates. Wish I could see him again. Make sure he's alright. Though if I'm being honest, it's just for my sake, isn't it? Not his.
Because even though worlds can separate, who's saying they can't ever come back together? Clear dialogue showing us a premonition of the future. So all that yapping to say, why cellular degradation? And the main reason is because Final Fantasy VII R-Series Remake and Rebirth and the next titles, Rebirth picks up right where Zack's death is changed, which means they have to be able to move over the continuation of the story of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion. That's why they tell us to play it. That's why Remake ends where it ends, with Zack alive, with you playing Crisis Core Reunion, and then coming into Rebirth. To truly understand, okay, I need to know about Zack's lore, I need to know about the Genova cells, I need to know about the cellular degradation, I need to know about Lazard, I need to know about Angeal, I need to know about Genesis, I need to know about the Shinra Manor, I need to know about the Calm flashback, I need to know about Hojo, I need to know about all of these things that make the entire story coherent. And Zack's hero journey in Crisis Core Reunion is from the Genova project. And like I said earlier on in the video, soldiers are monsters. So we have Angeal, Sephiroth, Genesis, and now Zack, who all have been attacked or mentioned that they are monsters. And Zack even warns Cloud when they're at the Nibelheim Inn, he says, don't join Soldier, it's just full of monsters. Like, Zack is on the down end here. And on the up end, near the end of the game, he's actually trying to show, no, you have free will. You have to fight for what you believe in. If you watch Demon Slayer, Muzan Kibuchi, I will fight forever. If you watch freaking Kaiju number 8, Kafka Hibano, I will fight forever, I must be stronger. If you watch Solo Leveling, I must be stronger. The Japanese culture is to show you will try, you will fail, you need to overcome. That is the arc of kind of their anime, their storylines, because they don't want a weak population watching stuff like Family Guy, where the man of the house is a fat slob who's an idiot, or like The Simpsons, who the same thing, the man of the house is a fat slob dumbass, like American Dad, where the guy's just a freaking idiot and has no control over what's going on. They're all about discipline. Life has setbacks. You must overcome those setbacks. You must overcome the Genova control and redeem yourself to your mother, Dr. Lucretia Crescent. Okay? So believe in it. Like Naruto, believe it. There you go. Okay, so now that we've kind of handled the why and what's going on and how we led to this, we have to look at how is cellular degradation being continued in the storyline of Final Fantasy VII R-Series. And I've tried to make this clear, like I've said before, through my Emergent Timeline series, but I'll kind of bring it all into one here, so you could just watch this video. Also watch my other videos, but you could just watch this video. But I'll link all my Merging the Timelines playlist somewhere here. We learn in Remake, when we go to the reactor, we see the projection of President Shinra from the robots. And he looks at Cloud and realizes his eyes, like, oh, you look like someone who's bathed in Mako. And Cloud's like, ex-soldier, And President Shinra, which he doesn't say in the original game, this is not the OG, he tells Cloud, you know that the consequence of being part of the soldier program is cellular degradation. You are going to die of cellular degradation. And Cloud doesn't deny it. He says, I know, I'm aware. Paraphrasing, right? Next, we go into Rebirth. Where do we start the game in Rebirth? We start in Calm. We go to the Calm flashback. What do we see in the Calm flashback? We see Cloud depicting himself as Zack, showing what happened in Nibelheim, and then we come out of that, we're in an inn. Who's the owner of the inn? Broden, the innkeeper, who we learn used to work for Shinra. And what's curious about Broden, the innkeeper, who used to work for Shinra, is that he gets the crazy headaches, he gets dizzy, and we know through Mildred, his best friend, who's now out in the not the wasteland, but out in the freaking forest fields.
Wrong.
We learn that she says, oh, Broden actually used to be part of this Shinra military, and they experimented on him. And then after Broden tells us very clearly, these symptoms I have are a sign of the cellular degradation. So stop running from what they're clearly telling us and stop trying to make this a story of what you want. Trust the devs. It's cellular degradation. Cloud is suffering from cellular degradation. We then move on to another character, Roche. Cloud defeats Roche a bunch of times in Remake. Cloud defeats Roche a whole bunch of times in Rebirth. What happens to Roche? He goes see Professor Hojo. What does Professor Hojo do? He injects him with Genova cells. Why? And I said this in my last video, if Professor Hojo knows now from reading Professor Gas reports that Genova is not an ancient, why would he still be injecting Genova cells into Roche, into other soldiers? He should be injecting them with either Ifalna's blood that he took up from all the scraps because he freaking mutilated her after she died, or directly through blood samples that he gathered from Aerith. So we know right there that, oh, somebody is telling Hojo to implant with Genova cells and not Ifalna's cells. Who could that be? That is obviously Genova. So you need to make that connection right here today by clicking the like button, by clicking the subscribe button. That's how you tell me you made the connection here today. So once Roche is injected with more Genova cells, what happens to him after he fights Cloud outside the Shinra Manor? He tells him, the degradation, it'll get ya. Yes, the degradation will get everybody who's been implanted with Genova cells. Everybody, Zack, Cloud, Sephiroth, anybody lingering a black-robed man, all of them, unless they can show the resiliency like Angeal has. And who can do that? Zack can do that, because Zack trained directly under Angeal, and Zack passed a whole bunch of mentorship onto Cloud. So maybe Cloud can also overcome it, but all the premonitions we've seen so far in the game show Cloud in the form of a black-robed man walking at the Northern Crater. So I don't really have an explanation outside of, oh man, it looks like Cloud's about to be a black-robed man. Furthermore, we have Dr. Shirin in Corel asking for a blood sample from Cloud. What does Cloud say? Don't touch me with that. Why would Cloud say that? Dr. Shirin is realizing that this is not Mako poisoning, this is something else. We also see in Cosmo Canyon, just really quick, I'll throw it in here, when the people who work with the planet, the people who have the highest connection with the planet, they show us the black-robed man comes by. What do they say? This isn't Mako poisoning. I've seen Mako poisoning. This is something else. That means the black-robed men have something else than Mako poisoning. What is that? Cellular degradation. So when we see Dr. Shirin working on a cure for the cellular degradation, has all the black-robed men there, we know that that's likely going to be the solution in the end. But the one thing that I think Square is doing that could be amazing, which is bridging some of Advent Children into Final Fantasy VII R series, is the fact that Aerith at the church, when you fight Kadaj and blow up the ground, there's a fountain that comes and there's holy rain that comes and heals people of their geostigma. Geostigma is the leftover Genova cells in the life stream that poisons people, and if you give up on your life, you get poisoned. That's why Cloud's poison, all that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But Mildred Broden, the innkeeper's friend, when we do our side quest with her, she tells us, I'm looking through the Old Republic documents to see if there's a cure for Broden, for his cellular degradation. And she's saying, maybe it won't be a cure from a doctor. Okay, who's not a doctor? Aerith. Who has special healing abilities that we know of from all the compilation of Final Fantasy VII? Aerith. So don't discount that dialogue as Square not showing something right in your face to try to see, oh, did you pick up on that? Right? And then finally, we have Cloud Strife giving us the example when he's moaning and groaning to Tifa and Nibelheim. It's the degradation. Some things I remember, some things I don't remember. Confirming that he knows he is deteriorating. He needs a solution. Come on, guys, it's cellular degradation. So that's all we got today, explaining how Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion is actually a prequel to Final Fantasy VII R-Series and everything that's merged over. Cissnei is now in Final Fantasy VII R-Series. Cissnei is not in the OG. The information we have from Crisis Core about Angeal, Genesis, Sephiroth, Genova Cells, cellular degradation is now in Final Fantasy VII R-Series. The stuff about Angeal is now in our series. We have a scene in Remake where Professor Hojo talks about using either S cells or G cells to impregnate or merge with Aerith. Now think about this. Think about this very carefully. If Professor Hollander, who I argue did create a perfect soldier in Angeal, he's not able to be manipulated by Genova, he's able to create clones that Sephiroth is not able to, and he only turns evil when he realizes that he's become a monster and he's destroyed his honor and therefore needs to be destroyed because his one promise is, I have to destroy all that creates harm. What if I create my own harm? Then I must be destroyed. Angeal is the best soldier, is able to block Sephiroth's full force strikes with the butt of his handle. Don't knock on my boy Angeal.
Angeal. Out of my way!
Okay? People say when he died, he was degrading. I just say when he died, he was just dying. A dying guy gets cracks and then turns into the life stream. That's not cellular degradation. That's just a guy dying. So the question is, and like I said, you need to think about this. If the Ultimania says that Project G, Genesis, Jillian, those soldiers have cellular degradation, S soldiers don't have cellular degradation, sure, then why would Professor Hojo risk all of his research in implanting G-type soldiers with Aerith, who clearly is his #1 priority to continue being able to test on making a pure-blooded soldier-type ancient? You need to explain that to me, because that's something I don't understand, because I know the game is the ultimate canon, and if Hojo is telling us I need to merge Aerith with G cells or S cells, that means that he thinks those two programs are the best versions of the programs, are the successful programs that they've researched, that they've tested. So you miss me with the whole Ultimania gives the ultimate truth. Use the game as the ultimate canon and then fill in some of the gaps with the other stuff. Use the game as the ultimate canon, and then if they bring characters from the older original compilation, like Cissnei, then you can say, okay, this is part of the canon. When they use characters like Mireille and Kairi from the older books, and now they're in our series, okay, they're now in the game. This game is the ultimate canon. Last message is, don't be a truther, be open-minded, and if you have any questions, as always, let's argue about it in the comments. I'll catch you on the next one.